YouTube is telling me that I am live. Good evening. Welcome to Tuesday Night Raw. Question and answer about feeding a raw, species appropriate diet to your animals with me, Dr. Andi. So, let me see here. Let me see. Is everything all checking out? If you're out there, if you could let me know that you can hear me and see me, that would be very helpful. Get a little more light. All right, I think we are ready to rock and roll. Hi, Keisha. Thank you. She says I am all good. So, welcome to Tuesday Night Raw. I'm Dr. Andi. I am a certified animal chiropractor and a doctor of chiropractic here in outside of Denver in Golden, Colorado. I've been in practice over 20 years now, adjusting dogs and learning all kinds of things I can learn from my clients and from my own dogs. All of this is not meant to be veterinary advice. This is the springboard for you to go out into the world and educate yourself, inform yourself, and decide what's going to work for you and your animals. My vote is you start with a raw species appropriate diet and then go from there. That's always where I tell people to start. If having any issues, or even if you're not having any issues, human beings are really bad at preventative care. Really bad. I think there's two things we do, and I don't know how the dental industry did it, but they got us snookered to be in there every 6 months for a teeth cleaning and oil changes, right? The rest of it, we wait till trouble happens. So how about we change that? Anywho, I digress. Let's see. Any pack news on my front? Hello, Shandell. Welcome. Well, let me invite all the newbies out there to pop your questions in the chat. We love newbie questions. I've been raw feeding for over 10 years or right around there, and we tend to get jaded and forget what it's like to be brand new and overwhelmed. And I actually have a client experience to talk about here in just a second about that. Let's see, any pack news? No, I actually think, well, we're still working with OMAD, right? That's been an ongoing process here. OMAD meaning 1 meal a day for my dogs. I was feeding breakfast, but that was not working for the poodle. He's like, I'm not hungry, or I don't want to eat, or whatever his reasoning was, right? And so he would eat a few bites and then he would still eat his meal in the afternoon. So I'm like, okay, instead of pushing the rock uphill, let's just switch everybody to the afternoon. I definitely want them to eat before the sun goes down. We definitely want them to get their food in before we go to bed for a few hours so all the digestion can handle it. So we're going to do kind of afternoon. So today I think they ate around 4 o'clock. We still had yellow bile out of the poodle because, well, the poodle. Right before we ate, but he did eat his whole dinner, so bonus, and he is eating better. Everybody else just eats whenever food shows up. Like the other 4 are like, food, okay, good. And so we are catering to the poodle, as one always does, it seems. So that's about it. Everyone's good. We're getting more walks in because it's finally spring, right? It's finally spring. Here in the foothills, here in the Rockies, we don't discount snow. Well, we like to say Mother's Day, but it could still snow up to Memorial Day here. But this week's supposed to be nice. I think it's just supposed to rain. So we're going to get out. We're getting more walks in. So that's exciting. I hope you all are getting outside some more with your animals too. And that actually brings me to Weekend Warrior, which I don't know if that podcast's been released yet, but Dee Dee and I talked about on the Raw Dog Food Truth podcast. Weekend Warriors. We do it to ourselves, right? We also do it to our animals. So if your dog has been used to 2 to 3 neighborhood walks a week all winter long, which generally is what we do around here. I mean, we snuffle, we play games in the house, we do fit paws, we do other things, but generally getting outside for walks, it has been pretty much regulated to maybe three walks a week, maybe four. Try to get four in there. It didn't help that my dog walker broke her foot. I think I really stepped up. I think it did good, but my dog walker did break her foot. So we've been missing her terribly for, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks now. So she should be getting back to her fighting weight, as they say. But weekend warriors with your dog. So if you're going out there, we're going to go do this hike, this 5-mile loop, yay. And your dog's like all about it until the end, or till that evening, or till the next day. They could be sore. Doesn't mean you broke them. Doesn't mean they were injured or hurt. They could just be sore because they haven't done that in how many months, however long your winters are. So just keep that in mind. You also have to work your animals up. They have to rebuild muscle. They have to get back in shape like we do. It's the same. It's very similar concept. Now they probably do it faster than us. They're happier to get out there and move and exercise, but just be aware that weekend warriors is a real thing with your dogs too. And I talked about this when particular dog, the owner wanted a brace, and I'm like, well, braces are a whole different conversation. I have very interesting point of views about them, but I'm like, you just adopted this dog in like Thanksgiving time. You've not hiked with him. You've done some stuff with him, and then you took him on a hike. And she's like, yeah, it ended up being really long, and we didn't mean it to be. I'm like, he's just sore. Okay. He does have a leg that I got to say, maybe the TPLO that was done on it was not one of the better surgical surgeries I've seen. It kind of wings out. It's kind of not great. He does really well with it. And mom gets him in for chiropractic now that he's new to the household. He's a good boy. He's not very sore. It's awesome. It looks worse than it feels, which is what I try to tell mom. And it just made him sore. I'm like, we can talk braces, but we're going to talk braces way down the line for the pup. This also comes into play if your animal has previously been injured. I have a little guy, little senior guy, super senior guy, a little terrier thing. He's so cute. Such a good boy too. And he was having neck pain and was doing acupuncture and laser. His body just happened to really respond to chiropractic. He actually really likes it. He kind of really likes me, and it's really super sweet. And we're getting him feeling really good, and he's back to like rubbing his face on the ground and shaking, and they're taking him for walks, which I think is up and down the driveway or around the house. It's like nothing, But his rear end was super sore this last visit. His neck was great. Thrilled with how his neck was feeling, which is awesome. But his butt was really sore. And I'm like, well, that's probably because you've been walking him again. And he's building up those butt muscles, going up that driveway. So it's a thing. Just be aware of that. It doesn't necessarily mean they're falling apart or they're hurt or anything. It may not even mean you need to give them any medication for it. I know we all maybe have a stash in the cabinet, right, that you previously gotten from your veterinarians for stuff. If my rule of thumb, because I can also make an animal sore after an adjustment, right? I move things that have not moved in a while, right? I put energy into joints, into muscles that may have been pretty stagnant, right? And now the body's doing something, and the body's like, ooh, we got to do something. We throw some inflammation in there, we get a little sore. I've been sore after an adjustment. I've been sore after a massage. We all know this, right? So it's a thing with our dogs too. My rule of thumb is, let's say they come in, like I worked 9:30 to 3:30 today, so 6 hours or so. And so this evening with any of those, so many hours later, if they're just out cold, like they're just sleeping, they're sleeping hard, they've gone potty, they ate their dinner, and they're just out for the day, that's fine. We don't need to give them any of the medication. We don't need to give them anything extra. I mean, if you are normally doing CBD or arnica with your dog, that you may want to continue that, but we don't have to do anything. They may still be sore, but it's not sore enough to bother them. And they're just sleeping it off. They're processing. They're going to be great. But if this evening comes and they're laying in bed and they're just kind of panting and they can't get comfortable, they're kind of getting up and making circles and getting back down in their bed, they're doing some pacing, that's then we go to giving them something for that. That means they are really sore. And we don't want to disrupt their sleep or your sleep. And we want them to get a really good night's sleep. And so they're feeling even better in the morning. So you can always pick up arnica at the health food store in 200C. Give them a few little tablets. Most people have that for themselves. It's a homeopathic remedy, super, super duper easy. If you're using CBD and you know how to dose that, do that. Your go-to from Adored Beast has arnica in it. Those are kind of the first line of defense. And then some dogs that have just gotten off of meds have a propensity to maybe be a little more sore. And so the owners usually have some of that. And so, you just kind of follow the directions. But and so same thing with our weekend warriors or coming back from an injury. If they're just kind of out after the event, out after the long hike, no big deal, then they don't need anything. If they're having trouble sleeping, they're doing all those things, then maybe they do need something to make that feel a little bit better for them so they can get a good night's sleep. Also with the weekend warriors or dog park enthusiasts or, whatever, because, everyone gets so excited for spring and this nice weather and getting out there, is if they're limping after the walk, make note of it. They're limping that evening, make note of it. I'm more interested, honestly, in the next day. How are they the next day? If they seem really tired and really sore that evening, they really just don't seem comfortable that evening, I'm still more interested in how they are the next day. If they've bounced back, if they're up at their usual time, they're bouncing around for their food, and it's okay, right? Especially like with the little terrier guy, since he's coming back from an injury, we really want to pay attention to that next day. We really want to make sure that he's really good that next day. He can be a little sore that evening or a little out of it or a little, I just want to lay around. I've been working my muscles on my extra walks. But to get a really good idea if you're doing too much with your animal is that next day. Okay, that next day. And you just kind of go from there. If you're building up for something or you're coming back from an injury, then you back off the activity. Like, hey, we're going to try 2 times around the driveway. And the next day, he's really not great. He's really not bouncing around like you'd like. He's really, his neck seems fine, but he just seems a little off. Okay, well, now you're back to 1.5 times around the driveway. I don't know how you do that. Maybe you pick them up. But that's how you kind of modulate that on hikes and bike rides and dog parks. To each his own on dog parks. I used to love the idea of dog parks. We don't go to dog parks and haven't for many, many, many years. I kind of say they're kind of like McDonald's playlands. Either your dog's going to get sick or injured. I would really love a space for my dogs to just go run. But I also have these dogs that even when we were at the dog park, they just stood by me. I'm like, go play. And they just want to stand by me. I'm like, okay. And actually, going to a dog park with a Doberman's a little disconcerting to everybody. And so we haven't gone in many, many years. So, however you want to work out your dog park things, that's up to you. Any questions out there? Pretty quiet this evening. Everybody's out enjoying the weather, right? That's what we're doing. Or we're shopping for Mother's Day. Mom's Day is Sunday. In case you missed that bulletin all over the television and everything. So we want to celebrate the moms out in the world, even and especially the dog moms, right? So happy Mother's Day. I guess if a question comes up, throw it up there. I want to talk about one more thing. We may have a little shorter of a live, which is fine. We'll just see how this goes. Yes, Chantel. There are so many perks to having small dogs. And when I started my practice 20 years ago, I was a big dog snob. I only like big dogs. And now, those little ones. Yep, they're really nice. They can do just a little walk, and they're pretty good with that. Heck, a lot of times they're like, did you see the weather out there? I ain't doing that. And you don't have to walk them, right? They eat a lot less. They poop a lot less. Sometimes you generally have to do a little more dental work. But love small dogs. When I got my first small dog, he's the Jack Russell Chihuahua mix, and he's now a little over 15. It changed my entire practice. He came to me missing his front left arm, so he's my tripod. He came from the Aurora Animal Shelter. He had the biggest ears and bright green eyes. I swear to God, bright green eyes. I was hoping he would keep them. He did not. He had them for about a year. They were beautiful. And I think I've told this story, but I went for a massage and came home with a puppy. And he has been probably the most perfect dog. And who would have thought that out of a Jack Russell Chihuahua mix, right? Who wants a Jack Russell? And I love Jack Russells, don't get me wrong, but they're a lot of little dog, right? And he came into my life and I'm like, oh my goodness, I love little dogs. This is fabulous. You just pick them up. And they don't eat anything. They're just, so it kind of changed my whole practice. I ended up with this wonderful appreciation for small dogs, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And then, my newest puppy's only 11 pounds. And I'm like, I choose to feed raw, species appropriate diet. And it's economical. I can do that more easily with smaller animals. And because that's my choice, I'm going to stick with smaller animals. And so that's one of my reasons. The exercise is another. The picking up is a third. They're misbehaving. They just go in the kennel for a little bit. Like it's just easier. Anywho, speaking of raw feeding dogs, which is what I'm supposed to be talking about. Although I do talk about animal chiropractic a lot, if you hadn't figured that out, for all of those watching the replay. Had a client in today. She has Newfoundlands. Big. These guys are black. Beautiful, fuzzy, drooly dogs. Okay. They're all generally so sweet when they come in and so drooly, but I digress on that. And she was talking about her 14-month-old pup who's already 138 pounds. He's a big boy, right? And her adult is 133 pounds. So I was actually doing math for her and raw feeding. What is that? Let me see. 133 plus 138. No. 133 plus 138 is 271 pounds of dog to feed. I feed about 150 pounds of animal a month. She's going to have to feed 271 pounds. It came out to about, what did we figure? Okay, hang on. I can do this. We can do this. So we'll just split it in half. 135 Let's feed for 100. I like that face, Keisha. 135-pound dog times, we're going to go middle energy level because one's a puppy at 2.5% times 10. So they should eat 33 to 34 ounces per meal. Times 2. Yeah. So essentially you could do a 2-pound chub per dog per meal. Ouch. That's 8 pounds a day. Let's see. And so 8 pounds a day, let's say at $5, not even, if 8 pounds a day at, yeah, so $40. That's right. That's what we figured. $40 a day times 30 is $1,200 a month to feed raw. That's what, whoa, yeah, that's what she said too. She's like, oh boy. And I actually do have a client that, and that maybe they don't need that much, or maybe it'll be a little less than that. I mean, you got to play with it, but that's kind of, I think, a little on the high side. They are mini bears. But still, I'm like, oh my. And so she's got like, what? She's like, well, I have this client that I can get it cheaper here. I'm like, you're gonna maybe piecemeal. She's like, I know a breeder that feeds all these dogs raw. I'm like, well, then you need to talk to her and see what she does. Like, you're gonna have, I mean, you might have to piecemeal some stuff. As much as we love raw dog food and company, she might have to piecemeal some stuff from them and other places. I think we all are guilty of it here and there, right? But yeah. And so that brings me back to her 14-month-old pup who was on the road with the breeder. Him and his siblings were traveling in like a small RV and doing dog shows before he came to live with her. And he's been a rather sick little pup. He has this low back pain that we haven't really gotten under control. We haven't really tried really hard, meaning visits and stuff chiropractically. He's had giardia. He thought he picked up kennel cough at the last dog show, but it turned out to be myocarditis, and now it's back again. Like, his immune system is not good. And I looked at her, I'm like, you're gonna have to get him on raw. We're gonna have to change his diet. You are not gonna be, I'm like, what are you doing for his immune system? His immune system is not happy. It is not doing its job. Is that from the stress of traveling as a pup? Is that strictly because he's reacting to the kibble and it's just not agreeing with him? It's possible. Is it from the vaccines? And now we're on many rounds of medication because she goes to the vet, and that's what the vets do. And so now we have thrown a lot of rounds of medications into the liver, into the digestive system, that now, we have that steep incline to go up too. And so she's like, well, what is that? She's on Purina Pro Plan Sport. I have no idea what that is, except it's Purina. And yeah. And so she's like, well, what is that going to cost me? So we went through it. I showed her what to order if she wants to order from them. I go, this is terrible. And this is what I actually really wanted to talk about. I'm like, just get the puppy on it. Just start with the one dog. That needs to happen, and that needs to happen really quickly. We really need to support this body with excuse me, a species appropriate diet that's going to help with digestion and help the immune system and all of that. We really got to get this little kiddo feeling better. And she's like, well, don't I want to just do both? I'm like, yeah, of course you want to do both, but that's a huge price tag. I think it's worth it. And that's your choice to have Newfoundlands, and they're big. And so they cost a lot to feed. And I told her one of my favorite sayings is, the biggest bang for your buck is if you go raw. Health wise, I mean, the amount of supplements she listed off too, I'm like, we probably don't even need all that going on. And she was doing a lot. She was already doing bone broth that she made herself for them. So I'm like, woohoo, we're going to keep that in there, right? That's awesome. And he was also on already 2 other joint supplements. Yes, he's a giant breed, right? They're giants. Yes, he's 14 months old. And she looked at me, I'm like, oh, the face. I made a face and a noise when she's like, the couple joint supplements she mentioned. And I didn't know one, and the other one's a very popular one. And it's fine, right? And I go, that's because when you're a baby like that, this is one of the arguments. Okay, take it or leave it. It's one of the arguments. Is if you start supplementing with glucosamine and chondroitin and all of these joint protective supplements, the body gets lazy. Okay, the body is very energy conservative. It is, if it can get away with not having to do something, it's going to. Okay. And so if you're going to feed it the glucosamine and feed it the chondroitin, and it doesn't have to make it itself, it's going to stop. It's going to get very lazy. And we want the body at a young age making its own joint protective molecules. And we want it handling its own joint issues at a young age. Now, her other dog, who was actually my main client, had previous surgeries as a puppy on his knees, and he's an adult giant with previous trauma. Yes, he needs those joint supplements. He's going to need help with that. But to do it so young and the body getting so lazy so young, I tend to like that argument better than supporting them as they grow. I just think we want the body to do what the body can do. We don't want to help it in its laziness. Yeah, wouldn't it balance out in a weird way? It's not a weird way. It's just not an obvious way. By reducing the medical costs to switch to raw. Yes, it's the biggest bang for your buck. Yes. I mean, if she sat down and pen to paper, write down all the medical costs for him and divide it by how many months she's had him. I don't know, 10 months at this point. Maybe he showed up at 4 months, something like that, 4 or 5 months, and see what he costs a month. And is it possible that raw diet would replace that? Absolutely. It could be life changing for this pup. That immune system may be like, oh gosh, this is exactly the nutrients we needed. Now we can do the things we need to do. It may not. There are no guarantees, but it's the biggest bang for your buck. And if you can get the body off of the glucose, the sugar, the carbohydrates, the starches, whatever you want to call it, the carbohydrates, and get onto all meat, essentially ketogenic diet, the body heals better in a ketogenic state. That's been proven in people's studies and mice studies, and you can go find that. I don't know if they've done it in dogs. Maybe on that. There's a keto dog site. I never remember the name of the website, and they do keto with cancer dogs. The body heals better in a ketogenic state. So even if it's not a direct meat diet, direct impact into the immune system, that meat diet, that lack of carbohydrates, that lack of glucose, that lack of insult over here may allow that immune system to heal. Yes, better absorption of the real food versus the substance stuff. Absolutely. I mean, we are ridiculous with our supplements. Ridiculous are pharmaceuticals too, but I don't think we're any better with our supplements. We would much rather not change a behavior, continue to eat what we know we should not be eating or feeding our animals, and get a pill. The pill will fix me. the magical pill. And that may be from the health food store, so it's better, right? Well, is it? The vast majority of what's in our health food store is a component of a vitamin, a mineral, or whatever, right? Sometimes you need the whole food for the body to really know what to do with it. And so going to a whole food, going to a species appropriate diet, getting rid of the carbohydrates of all kinds. And in my world, especially if you have an ill animal, that includes the damn vegetables. Nah, I do feed some vegetables, but I don't feed a lot. I really don't. I don't eat a lot. So yes, that's my personal bias. Okay, I'm telling you where I'm coming from. But if you're struggling with your animal and you're struggling with anything, we want to make that digestion as easy as possible. And that means putting one type of thing in it. In my book, that's meat, bone, organs, like just animal products for right now. And maybe later you can go back, or, they love strawberries. Okay, we can talk about strawberries in a couple months. And you know what? They will also be okay if they never have another strawberry. But you know what I'm getting at. And who was I talking to about pretty much like that? But they love this. I'm like, okay, and that's fine. But can we do 2 weeks of meat? Just 2 weeks of meat. And I'm hard pressed these days. We usually discuss no supplements. No supplements for 2 weeks. Let's just see where we land. And this is a good spot for all the newbies that are going to catch this later. Transition. How do I transition? How do I transition from Purina Pro Plan Sport to a raw? Yeah, just do it. Meaning you feed the last kibble meal in the morning. You actually skip dinner. I know everyone's rolling over in their grave. We're not going to feed our animals one night. You are not going to feed your animals for one night. Go for a walk instead. Just take their mind off of it. Go enjoy the spring weather. And the next morning is the bowl of raw meat. I used to be a little more wishy-washy about it. If you wanted to transition, that's fine. You still can, obviously, right? But I think that transition, the more I see it and the more I talk with people and the more I just, have them just skip a meal and do it, that transition causes more trouble because you're trying to digest kibble and the raw, and then that drags on for a couple days and you're irritating the whole system, and then you finally get to raw and that system's a little more irritated than it should have been, could have been, and then you're struggling a little bit longer. Just do it. Right? What's the slogan? Is that Nike? Just do it. Back in the day. Just do it. But take that, 24 hours, 22 hours and have the whole system cleared out of the processed food. Eggs are great. Raw eggs are great. Yep, add them to the meat. And if your dogs will eat the shells, bonus. Now, the kicker with the shells is they cannot be from the grocery store eggs. They need to be farm-raised shells. Because they do something. I have not figured out what. They do something to the shells of the eggs that we buy in the grocery store. And you don't really want to feed that. But if you have farmer raw eggs and they're sitting out on your counter, which I have eggs sitting out on my counter because the bloom has not been disrupted, they have not been washed, they can sit out there, I don't know, in a couple months. They're not around long enough, so I don't know. We eat a lot of eggs. But yeah, crack them open. I know some dogs will take the whole thing and they'll go eat it and squish it. Mine are like, no, we don't do shells. And honestly, most of them, mine actually prefer them cooked with salt, pepper, and butter. But they do get raw eggs in their food. Yep. Yeah, they as soon as you wash them and then, yeah, whatever they put on them, that's why I have to go in the fridge. Yeah, I don't know what. I can't say I've looked real hard either, but it's not on the label, people. Oh, shocker. There are things that are not listed on the label of everything. I know. Does anybody else feel like if it's not one thing, it's another out there? Um, so yeah, raw eggs are great. They're actually the perfect protein. They're absolutely fabulous. Great protein to fat ratio. Um, they are also one of the higher foods in selenium, which is one of the micronutrients that's kind of hard to get. Um, so selenium, oysters are also really good for selenium if you need selenium. I think it was Chandel. Did you tell me that selenium and seizures is something that kind of goes together, that you want to make sure the selenium levels are up? I think you told me that. But a couple foods you can do oysters with your dogs if they'll eat them. I think most of them come out of a can. I mean, I don't know what they're in. I can't say I've looked at an oyster can. I don't think I've ever eaten oysters, but I have ordered oyster extract, and Torch was taking that with me when we were first struggling with his gut stuff for the selenium to feed his gut. So maybe my next email will be on selenium. Maybe we'll talk about selenium just for the heck of it. My email list got today was all about, well, not all about by any means, right? But we talked about maltodextrin. We touched on fillers and such. Fillers. I'm blanking on some words. Oh, my notes aren't here. What they do to our supplements, basically, and how much of our supplements are actually the fillers, the binders, the junk, and the active ingredients actually make up a very small percentage of our capsules and tablets. And tablets are always going to be harder to break down and absorb and be usable by the body. So whenever possible, stick to capsules. And if at all possible, stick with a powder, which it tends to be a little easier with our animals, right? The powder on the food. Us people, would prefer a capsule to swallow, right? But we talked about maltodextrin and how let's go back to that ketogenic state, that if you have an ill animal, you have an animal with autoimmune, you have animals that are fighting bacterial infections over and over again, like my little fuzzy friend, or cancer even, that ketogenic state, you're doing so many supplements, and maybe they all have maltodextrin, maybe half of them have maltodextrin, maybe you don't even know which ones have maltodextrin in them, and your dog is getting a lot of maltodextrin every time you give them a supplement, and you're spiking that glucose. That's going to interrupt their ketogenic state. That's going to stress the system, and you don't even know you're doing it, because sometimes it's not even labeled. Sometimes it's there and we don't notice it. I was guilty of it. One of my absolute favorite supplements in the world is full of crap as inactive ingredients. It made me cry a little. And so I didn't take it last night. I stopped. I'm like, And now I'm on the hunt for something else. But this has been my go-to for the last 20 years. Like, I love this supplement. I love it. And lately it's been an everyday thing for me, but not always. And it's never been an everyday thing for my animals, but I loved it. I loved it so much. But I'm like, oh my goodness, it had maltodextrin listed and it had lactose listed. And both of those are sugars. Don't need it. And that's probably most of the tablet. It was very disheartening. Did you say had a source for sardines with low or no salt? I don't think they add any salt to sardines. Sardines are just sardines. And why don't we want salt? I am personally obsessed with salt. Do you want to know how many types of salt I have currently? And I have sole water, I have a salt brine, I have Icelandic salt, I have Redmond salt, I have Celtic salt. Um, I've stopped using run-of-the-mill Himalayan salt. A lot of it comes out of India. It has to travel a lot of miles. And actually, so does the Celtic salt. But the Himalayan pink salt seems to be very heavy metal, full of heavy metals. Most of your salts are, but you need salt. Anyway, so I don't have a source for sardines with low or no salt. Yes, of course, sodium affects animal systems. It's one of their electrolytes. Now, how much? I don't know. It's one of I have like this whole list of rabbit holes that I would like to go down because when I went onto a ketogenic diet, right? I dropped my glucose. I'm functioning off of ketones. I do my best to stay in fat burning. There's no nutritional requirement for carbohydrates in any being's body. Okay. Well, that meant my electrolytes went wackadoodle, because carbohydrates, hydration, carbs hold on to water. Carbs cause so much inflammation in the cells are holding on to water. You are generally waterlogged when you're eating the standard American diet. Okay. So all that water, right? People go keto, right? And they lose all this weight. Well, a lot of it is water weight. And that means I actually have to be very cognizant of adding in salts. I've got to be cognizant of my potassium, of my magnesium, of my phosphorus, my electrolytes. So yes, but I don't know how much because they do not sweat it out like we do. They don't sweat like we do, right? They pant out of their mouths and they sweat a little bit. Maybe, sometimes you can see little footprints because they're a little sweaty in their feet. Some dogs sweat more in their feet. I don't know if you've come across that. Otherwise, they're panting out of their mouth, but they're not losing as much sodium as we do. So an actual electrolyte replacement and that you don't see that a lot for animals. And even when they go in for hydration, it is saline, so that would be a salt water. I believe it's saline. I would imagine it's saline. I've never thought about it, right? But I don't know if they do other electrolytes ever, right? I know that both dogs and cats can have Pedialyte to replace some of that if they've been vomiting. Supposedly, I have not tried this. This is Rumorville. Cats love grape Pedialyte. Now, I doubt you want to actually give them grape Pedialyte because it's probably got color number 5 blue and yellow 2 or whatever it is. And small children shouldn't be drinking colored flavored Pedialyte either, but that's a story for another day. So yeah, it's another rabbit hole. I did because they're mine. I'm like, well, I added a little bit of salt to their raw food. Damn, they drank a lot of water. And I did this for 3 days. It was just a pinch. I'm just curious. And my poor dogs are like, oh God, what is she gonna torture us with today? But they've been quote unquote keto for years upon years upon years. When my mom moved in with us, they may not have been keto because there was this piece of bread and this piece of bread and this noodle. And I'm like, you've got to stop. This is not what they eat. Please. And she actually likes sardines. I actually like sardines. I'm one of those weird people. I love sardines, actually. I'm like, if you want to share something, share your sardines, not the cracker, not the club cracker that is so full of processed toxic seed oil said. I'm like, But, and now that her dog has passed away and we've kind of settled into a routine, they're not getting as much stuff. But gosh, the last time they had a hunk of carbohydrates, I couldn't even tell you. And so they must be managing. There's no added salt to their food except those 3 days that I was playing with it. I mean, Raw Dog Food Company doesn't add sodium, so there must be enough sodium naturally occurring in the meat. It's not on the label because it's a whole food product and it's going to vary from tube to animal to tube to tube, right? Like, but yeah, electrolytes are a little fascinating with the animals. Absolutely. But that is why they need to eat the bones. That is part of the electrolyte balance is the calcium and phosphorus that they get from the bones. That's part of their, part of their electrolyte balance is that bone. That's why you can't just go to the grocery store, buy some ground beef, and hand it to them long term. You run out of meat one day of just regular old beef from the grocery store with no bone, they'll be fine. Okay, but you can't do that long term. They need the minerals that are in that bone ground up, and that's also part of their electrolyte balance. That's also part of what the kidneys are balancing in the body. So yeah, Soleil water for dogs, maybe. I haven't done that. I don't know. If they're healing from something, like if you're trying to heal a dog from IBS, I don't know. This is just me thinking out loud. Well, what if we did do that? What if we added some Soleil water to their water, and they got some of that extra minerals all day long? What would that be like? I don't know. I really don't know. That's probably, yeah, they're not getting anything if they're drinking distilled water. That's a great question, Chandel. If they were my dogs, I might be inclined to try that if they're drinking distilled water. So you got to put something back in there. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think if you do long-term distilled, it's going to actually start pulling minerals out. So that might, I wonder if you should Google Soleil water for dogs and see what comes up, especially if they're drinking distilled. Yeah, because they're going to need some of that. Yeah, pulls all the bad stuff and the good stuff. Yeah, please do. And bring it back to the group. Let us know. That's awesome. Wonderful questions. I always love where these go, right? I always love where my emails go, because I'm like, oh, maltodextrin's terrible. Oh, look at that. It's in my favorite supplement that I refer to everybody. Like, well, hell, I just got to call myself out on that one. And if that supplement's working well and you only do it every once in a while and it's the only one, but that's what I was encouraging her to go look at all of them, see what they all have in them. And I do know the vast majority of people, probiotics, most likely the dog ones, they use the maltodextrin because it's cheap, it's easy. They can coat all the probiotics, and then it actually, and then the probiotics eat the maltodextrin too. It's their prebiotic to activate them, but because they're coated in the maltodextrin, they're not really that active. And then you're spiking your blood glucose with it, and you're changing the gut biome and allowing E. coli to overgrow. And around you go with probiotics. I've always had a very tentative relationship with probiotics. I gotta say, maybe in the last 6 to 9 months, I've tried some of them again. I've gone with Adored Beast. I know they do not use maltodextrin. She uses larch, which is another fermentable, non-digestible fiber that can also be eaten by the probiotics as a prebiotic. I know she uses chlorella in her seed to soil, and she uses turkey tail in her wolf blend. So, in that, honestly, unheard of in any people probiotics that I'm aware of. So, I mean, really, really high-end products, Adored Beast. And I was so happy to get Torch off of his probiotics. We were using seed to soil, and he doesn't need them anymore. I just have always just been, so many people are so, gung-ho about the probiotics. I've always been a little, and then I recently was in class, a couple of chiropractors, and they were talking about probiotics, and they're like, they have a really high-end practice on Maui, and they see high-end clients, and they're super brilliant. And they're like, yeah, we maybe give somebody some probiotics once a year. He's like, and they've actually done some studies on why is SIBO so prevalent, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And it's possible that it's because the overuse of probiotics, and they're not going where they need to go, or they're not doing what they need to do, and they're actually causing this overgrowth. So take all of that with a grain of salt on your next purchase of probiotics. Unless proven otherwise, I would assume your probiotics have maltodextrin in them. And you can ask the company. You can call them up, and if they're happy to tell you, or it's something else is listed on the label, you're probably okay. But until proven otherwise. And really, large may be listed, but most people wouldn't even know what they're reading. Large, what the heck is that? Or why is the chlorella in there? Or why is the turkey tail in the Adored Beast products? I only know that because I listened to hours of videos to learn about the products. And I found it fascinating what she did for that supplement line. And I'm currently still not using any probiotics with my animals at the moment, or myself. I've never actually taken any probiotics. Just me. Those are my thoughts. Go do your own research, go educate yourself, go inform yourself, go see what's going to work for you and your animals. Would love to hear back what you find, Chandel. Maybe I'll do a little rabbit hole digging. I have so many holes started that I'm like, oh, I've got so many different topics I want to dive into. But this is great. I love this. All right, I will be back next week. I am here all of May, and we have 5 weeks together. Every Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Tuesday night raw Q&A about feeding your animals a raw, species-appropriate diet. Any new questions, always welcome. So bring your friends. Any bumps in the road, would love a chance to maybe talk it out, think it out. Maybe you give me some homework if I don't know the answer. I do like my homework, although I'm giving that one to Chandel right now because I'm busy. And I'm going out of town the end of next week. I'm headed back to the Chicago area. I'm going to go learn some more animal chiropractic from my most favoritist mentor in the world, Dr. DeStefano. He is a board certified chiropractic neurologist. He is an AK doc and an animal chiropractor of magnitude. He's brilliant, and he's one of the nicest people I know. So I'm super stoked about that. Plus, Chicago in May, we can do that. The weather's probably going to be okay. Let's see. Animal Magic Care, if you're in the Denver area. I am taking on new clients, but not till June. May is full up. And you can also get on the email list there. You can kind of check around what else I'm up to. I think that's it. Oh, raw dog food. No. Raw dog food truth podcast with Dee Dee Mercer Moffat, CEO of Raw Dog Food and Company. There we go. Ooh, murdered that. Every Monday morning, she puts out our podcasts, and we just talk about stuff. Things we've just learned over the years and what we've done with our animals. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight live. So grateful for that. Thank you so much for watching me in the future. Always grateful for that. I believe we keep half an eye on any comments. So if you have any further questions on these, please pop them in the chat. And I think that's it. Thank you, ladies. And until next time, how much fun can you have with your animals? Oh, and happy Mother's Day.